All right. I believe we are back. It's the Down Beach Buzz podcast for March 2025. It's all brought to you by Sherry Lilienfeld. You can find her at realtysherry.com. Whether it's Ventnor, Margate, Longport, Brigantine, you need a buyer's agent, you want to grab one of those houses that just recently reduced its price, Sherry is the ultimate buyer's agent. Got a listing? Sherry can do that for you as well. eXp Realty. Go to realtysherry.com. And Paul Scollage, he's the man. He's from rate.com. Whether it's buying a home, refi, rate quote, cash out, whatever you need. You want to talk about Jay Powell and the Fed yesterday? Let's go right into it, Paul. What's the latest 30-year fixed rate with those with the best credit? And what did Jay Powell at the Fed do yesterday? Did it make the housing market somewhat better with the rates and the outlook for the next few months?
Yeah, typically when he speaks, it's always negative when it comes to interest rates. The last, handful of speeches, he really made things worse for the industry. Not so much in what he said, it's just his tone and how he says things. But yesterday was one of the more positive days for mortgages, and the fact that there's no immediate rate cut that we're going to see. The projection for the year is going to be an additional 2 cuts from now until the end of the year. But his tone was much more dovish, and the fact that talking about transitionary, their inflation is doing better, which the market, it reflected on that. And we saw a great day yesterday for mortgages. And, hopefully it's a trend that we see as we move forward into 2025. If I spoke at this time last year, rates are probably in the upper sevens, mid sevens. Today a 30-year fixed mortgage is finally in the mid to low sixes, depending upon the circumstance, whether it's a primary residence, whether it's a second home, whether it's a cash out refi, whether it's just a rate and term refi. But rates are finally today trending in the right direction. If this is anything that we see moving forward, we'll be moving in the right direction. One of the things that hurt us over the last couple of days were tariffs, the unknown of what's going to happen with tariffs. But right now, I think we're in the right transition as we move forward into, which I consider the busiest time of year, the spring market. This past weekend was great for pre-approvals. There is plenty of buyers that want to buy. The challenge that we face, that we've seen probably for the last 18 months, is what I consider a lockjaw, where there's no listings, right? We need inventory. And what's happening is there's so many sellers or potential sellers that say, I don't want to sell my house when I have a rate of 4%, right? However, I'm going to go into a rate of 6.5% or 6%. And it's kind of a payment shock. So we need rates to continue to get better in order for us to see more inventory come to the market. I think what we see now for inventory is people that have to sell, right? Whether they're relocating, whether they're going through a divorce, whether they're trying to upsize. So, I think hopefully today and yesterday are 2 positive days as we move into the spring market.
So with all the price reductions and the price adjustments in the market and more inventory, is that playing a role in how many phone calls you're getting, Paul?
Well, I think rates aren't the only factor that drive buyers to the market. I think it definitely helps, but there are buyers that have to buy, right? They're relocating, whether they're first time home buyers or they're relocating to different areas, or they have to increase the size. But right now, I think the best person or the best couple that have to in buying right now are first-time home buyers. I think there's so many benefits for first-time buyers into the market, whether it's grants, whether it's just low interest rates. So first-time home buyers are one that I have seen often, which are potentially winning. I think the other downside is, with the lack of inventory, you need to strengthen the quality of your offer, and you just can't have a standard pre-approval. You just can't wait. You unfortunately, a lot of times you have to be ultra aggressive in your offer for things to get accepted.
What do you think, Sher? Has your business day to day have been changing because of the mortgage rates, but not so much down the shore? Is that the way that works?
Yeah, I mean, Paul was like, it's the market that's stronger is for first-time home buyers. Okay, well, we don't have that here at all. These are second home buyers, discretionary income. We are seeing an increase in the inventory, but the prices are still high. Like Paul's like, there's a lot of people getting qualified. Like even down here, people still get mortgages, but they're waiting. There are a lot of buyers out there. The buyers are waiting for prices to come down. And some of them, the higher end stuff, the prices are coming down a bit. And yes, I'm very happy to work with someone as a buyer's agent to help them find their shore property. And we will be talking about that a little bit later. But yeah, the inventory is coming up, but the prices need to match the buyers that are out there and what they're waiting for.
Hey, Paul and Sherry,
Yes.
do you have any sense of how people are using financing to buy a shore home? I know it might be tough. Is there any way to determine how many people that are coming down the shore buying, how many are buying in cash, how many are taking out a mortgage? Any sense of that?
Yeah. So one of the things that I would say is, even though that there's a lack of inventory and it's driving, prices up, it's still a great time to buy. And the fact that there's less competition in a lot of times. So I always tell people, listen, you might not be comfortable with your rate today, and it's a short-term rate because you will potentially refinance out of that. However, think about the fact that there's not that many buyers that are going to compete against that property right now. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to be. You get into the spring market, or you get into the summer, or the end of summer is a lot of times people on the shores, they put their house up after they just rented it for the full season, and there's going to be so much more competition that you're going to be up against because maybe the rates are more attractive. Also, keep in mind, property values are not going down, in my opinion. They're only going to continue to go up, whether it's 1%, 2%, 5%. So don't be afraid to buy today, knowing that it's a little bit higher than what you wanted to be in terms of your monthly payment. Keep the fact that you're going to refinance out of it. There are great financing options. And I think the big one that we do a lot of right now is, do not be afraid to take cash out of your primary residence to purchase something down the shore in cash. A lot of people that I speak with, their primary residence in South Jersey or in Pennsylvania is free and clear of a mortgage. Take the cash out of your house. You can take up to 80% of your appraised value less whatever you owe on your house. Now you're a cash buyer. You're not competing. It just puts you in a better financial situation. There is also a better tax write-off for a primary residence versus a second home when it comes to your taxes on interest. So I really preach that. Do not be afraid to do a cash out refi.
Yeah, I think we're at the end of a cycle that's been going on for about 12 years, and everything's cyclical, but something needs to hit rock bottom before it can bounce up. But I think things are aligned for a very strong bull market in real estate sometime in the near future. That's my sense. But what do I know? I'm just an amateur realtor wannabe. So,
I do want to follow up on something Paul said. Like if you have been waiting for a home down here at the shore, you see something, don't be afraid to put in an offer either. Okay, we're in March right now. Traditionally, most of the sales would happen either March and April before the summer, so people can get into their homes for the summer, or like Paul said, in September or October, when a lot more properties hit the market. But if you see something and you really want to get in, there are also motivated sellers. The sellers that are out there, they do want to sell. So be afraid to have a person represent you and be aggressive with your offer. You never know. They could say yes. It doesn't hurt to try. Just you got to be out there. And if you don't ask for the business, you don't get the business. So that's what I want to say with Paul. Paul says it all the time. You see that house, go for it. And he has a fantastic program where if the rate changes, they will adjust the rate after it changes. Paul, maybe you want to just comment on that program.
Yeah, we offer a very competitive refinance where we'll cover all of your lender fees for any refinance that you do with us for a certain period of time. But we also, if you're under contract and your interest rate is locked in, we offer one free float down option prior to closing. So, rates, I'm hoping we're in this trend that we're going to continue to get better day after day. But again, I think the big key is, don't be afraid to buy a house because your interest rate's at 6.5% and you want to be at 6% and it's a $60 a month difference in payment. You have an opportunity to get that house with less competition. And that's where I think you can kind of maximize your opportunities in this in this very challenging market. The validity's nuts. I mean, it really is crazy right now.
Hey, Paul, Paul Skollich from Rate.com and Sherry Lilienfeld of EXP. Paul, this concept of does it appraise? When someone's looking to borrow some money to buy a home, or a seller's looking to sell at a certain price, what does that mean? Does it appraise? Somebody has to drive out, do a drive-by to identify, is that value accurate? Should I give this person 500 grand to finance this home? So what does that mean does it appraise? Does that ever kill a deal on occasion?
So I always say a house is worth what anyone's willing to pay for it. However, we as a lender, we're only going to lend on what's called the lesser of the two. And I mean the sale price or the actual appraised value. Okay. So in this market, very rarely do we see houses under appraised, because over the last 2 years, in my opinion, a lot of people overpaid for houses because they wanted them, and they set the tone for comps. So comps right now, when you're looking at comps, you should always be able to find a comp to be able to work with the comp that actually will set the value for your property. So yes, the house has to appraise for what the sale price is. And if it doesn't, then there's some tricky situations that you can work around where you can, put less down and be able to overcome that gap. You can actually go back to the seller, ask the seller to adjust. In this market, very rarely do we see the seller adjusting, because the seller says, you know what, if it doesn't work for you, I'm just going to put it back on the market and hopefully someone else will buy it at that number. So yes, the house has to appraise. We only lend on the lesser of the two, which would be the sale price or the appraised value.
And that issue might be more apparent during a bull market where everybody is euphoric, the fear of missing out. They might somewhat inflate some prices that they'll pay. Whatever, I got to have that house. That's where, as a mortgage guy, as an appraiser, you want to lend money based on the appraised value as opposed to the contracted value, because there's always a risk there. Is that what you're saying?
So you said we lend on the lesser of the two. So let's just say you're buying a house for $500,000 and the purchase price, the house is $500,000. The house appraises for $490,000. We're going to lend on the $490,000, not the $500,000, the lesser of the two. Now, if you put buying a house for $500,000, it comes in at $550,000. There's nothing that you can do with that additional equity. However, when you purchase that property, you have equity from day one. It's non-usable equity, right? But knowing that you're buying a house and the house is worth 10% more than what you're actually paying for it. So, I've seen it. I mean, I've seen people under list properties. People buy them, and the next thing you know, the house over appraises and the buyer's in a good situation.
And Sherry, does that affect the seashore market? So you're somewhat different because you focus on Margate, Ventnor, Longport, Brigantine. Do you see this as an issue down the shore? The disconnect sometimes between the paid for value and the appraised value? Is that common down here?
Not so much, but it's so funny, Paul. You were saying there's plenty of comps. Like, we don't have a lot of comps down here. And, at the shore, every block closer or further to the beach really affects the value. So you need, realistically, like if you're buying a house 3 blocks from the beach, you should get a similar size house 3 blocks from the, for comps, 3 blocks from the beach. Now, hopefully you have an appraiser that makes the adjustment on the location, because that block makes a huge difference. Beach block versus between Atlantic and Ventnor Avenue is a huge difference. But also what Paul was saying, a lot of the people buying it, second homes, they'll pull the equity out of their primary, or they'll pull the money out of the stock market. So most of them have cash to play with. It's a little different when you're with first time home buyers and they just have a little bit of cash and they need that house to appraise to get their mortgage at 80%. So it's just very different because we have fewer comps. Like, look at Longport. Longport doesn't have that many houses to begin with, so it's just a little bit harder. I don't know, Paul. What do you think about the shore versus, like, because you work in Pennsylvania also, so you talk about 2 different markets, right? I'm just
totally different markets. I mean, the shore market's kind of an animal in itself, and really. It's hard to gauge a shore market compared to Pennsylvania. I will say that, the shore market, again, the house is worth what someone's willing to pay. Where someone wants that property, they're going to go in over asking and just be super ultra aggressive to be able to win. So I know that there's less inventory at the shore. However, I think, and Sherry, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of times at the end of the summer is when you start seeing a little bit more inventory because people want to unload after the summer. But again, I think, and then a lot of people don't realize this, but interest rates for a second home are going to be higher than what your interest rate would be for a primary residence. The investor says there's more risk as a second home versus a primary residence. In 07 and 08, when the market crashed, the people that defaulted and walked away were the people that owned second homes or investment properties. They didn't want to default on their primary residence. So, gradually, interest rates for second homes, unfortunately, have gotten worse. But there are some really good opportunities if you put 30% down on the second home where there's not that many adjustments. But, I think, again, the PA second home market and the Shore market are totally different markets.
Paul Scollage of Rate.com. One more question that just came in. Out of all the transactions that you come in contact with on a monthly basis, what percentage of those transactions are from first-time buyers? For down the shore, that is. How many first-time buyers are down the shore? Just a wild guess. And Sherry, maybe you can chime in as well.
I can tell you, I can count on one hand on first-time home buyers down in the second Shore market. I'm actually dealing with two couples right now, one in Brigantine and one in Absecon, that are first-time home buyers, but it's a rarity, right? As you move off the island, it's much more common, but something on the Shore market itself, because, a first-time home buyer trying to buy in the Shore market, I mean, even though it's it's not a beach block, it's not a waterfront property values are still expensive. They're still high. So
yeah, I was wondering if there's, I see some properties coming on the market at 1.2, maybe slightly under $1 million. And I'm thinking maybe that's a first time buyer right there at those price points. Maybe
they need mommy and daddy for money. That's for sure.
Usually it's many blocks in and it's an older home, probably a 20, 30-year-old home. It's still a nice home, but not a McMansion on the beachfront.
Ranchers, small ranchers off the ocean, off the Back Bay waterfront in the center of town is what you're going to see.
That's unfortunate. So it's just tough for first-time home buyers, and especially this could have an effect on the local school systems as well, right? Possibly.
Definitely could. I think the ocean, like I said, anything on the island, whether it's Brigantine, Atlantic City, anything. Well, Atlantic City is a different story, but Brigantine, Sea Isle, Ocean City, all those shore points, first-time home buyers are something that you don't see too often.
Yeah. Any thoughts before? I know that you're heading out, Paul. You got some big stuff to work on. Anything you want to say in closing?
I'm just looking forward to hopefully we finally start to see the right direction with the Fed. Hopefully we start to see positive movement in rates, and we can get rates under the 6%. That's what we need. All
right. Paul Scollage of Rate. That's Rate.com.
See you guys. Thank you.
Buy a home, refinance, rate quote. Paul Scollage of Rate.com. There you go, Sharon. That's an uplifting opening with Paul, right? Paul is always he's always accurate. He always has the up-to-date information about what it's like to buy a home especially down the shore. So very few first-time home buyers. We haven't really talked about that. We always knew that was probably true, but we never actually verbalized that. There's some pros and cons to that, but we'll see what happens. What do you think? The decline of first-time, yeah.
They're buying, the first-time home buyers are going to buy offshore, EHT, like you said, Absecon, Galloway. You get a nice big home, a family home, forever home. They call them the forever homes, ones that they can grow into. It's crazy, though, to think that a first-time home is like $400,000 or $500,000. It's $500,000. So much money. The first property I bought, I think, was $28,000, $38 something. It was something ridiculously low, and it was an old row home in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Crazy, but anyway.
All right, we want to go into our special feature this month. It's going to be, or this week, this episode is going to be all about the pros and cons of buyer's agents and what the hell is a buyer's agent? Do you really need one? And let me just bring that slideshow up here real quick.
That would be great.
Stay right there. Don't go anywhere. I got to remove this one. And then we're going to pop that on. I think we have. There we go. Let me get it on.
All right.
Hold on one second. Here we go.
Mortgage rates, buyer's agent. So I want to talk about what a buyer's agency agreement. So just in general, August 1st, whenever a realtor is supposed to work with you, you're supposed to sign a buyer's agency agreement. So what is this buyer's agency agreement? And in general, why this big change? So it used to be when you had a listing, you know, the listing agent represents the seller, and sometimes people would go into property and look for, you know, think, oh, let me just cut out the middleman here. Let me just call the number on the sign. This be so much easier, more straightforward, and, you know, I'm going to get a better deal. Well, that is a really bad idea. Why is that a bad idea? Because the listing agent works for the seller. They have a fiduciary responsibility for the seller. Their job is to get the best possible price and terms for the seller, not you as the buyer. That's why it is really important to have someone that is working for you as an advocate, who is your advocate, where there is no conflict of interest. And I say this all the time. When you go into a court of law and have the attorney who's representing the other side also represent you, it just wouldn't happen, because intuitively, it just doesn't make any sense. How could someone do their best job for one side and their best job for the other? You are very, very limited when you are what's called a dual agent. So the dual agency comes from the listing agent also representing you. Think about how challenging that is, though. Like, I mean, think about how the seller's telling you stuff, you know, in confidence, why they need to sell, what their mortgage is, what their situation is, what their motivation is. And then a buyer comes along, and then the buyer's going to tell you all kinds of stuff. And then, so who are you going to, like, they can't reveal either to either side. But when you have a buyer's agent, I say they're like a pit bull for you. They're going to find the deals. They're not going to have a conflict of interest. They're going to dig deep. And the other thing is, let's say a listing agent, just hypothetically, listed a house too high. How is that listing agent going to then tell you and bring you cops and say, oh no, I think we can get it for less. It's listed too high. Like it just doesn't make any sense. So you need someone in your corner whose sole focus is your best interest. I don't know. Do you have any questions right now? Because I'm just.
I got an awful lot. The first thing is, why would a real estate agent want to play both sides? Why would they want to represent the seller and the buyer? Why would they want to do that? Maybe you don't want to make it as blunt as this, but it's called double dipping. It's called double siding the deal. It's getting all the commission on both sides. In some states, that's either restricted or illegal. But in Jersey, it's different. But I'm telling you, I made that mistake many years ago. One time, I just told my agent everything about how much money I had, this and that. It didn't turn out that good. I love the house and all that, but beware. If you go to try to buy a home, especially down the shore, and you're going directly to the seller agent, the listing agent, you're nuts. You're going in there totally naked. You got to realize you need somebody on your side. Sherry said you need an advocate. You need to have somebody with no conflict of interest. And remember that phrase, double dipping the commission. You've heard it, getting both sides. It still happens. It happens here along the shore. Sherry won't say it, but I certainly will. Be careful. Do not go directly to the seller's agent. You're not going to get the best deal. They're going to tell you, well, it's efficient. We got everything in the same office. That's a bunch of you know what. Beware the buyer's agency. Did I make that clear?
You made it. You mean beware of the dual agent, not the buyer's agent. Beware of the dual agent.
Did I make that mistake throughout the whole entire rant?
No. You just said it at the end. Beware of the dual agent.
And there was one more thing. There was one more thing. When you want to put an offer in, you see a house or a business and you go, I got to have it. And you write up an offer and you give the offer to the seller's agent, I guess. How do you make sure that your offer got to the actual seller? How do you know that? Shouldn't you sign paperwork? Shouldn't the seller's agent basically show you, I guarantee you, I got the sign off right here. I'm just afraid that people are putting bids on houses and it's not getting to the seller. Is that happening sometimes?
All I can tell you is there is a form by the New Jersey Association of Realtors, NJAR, which is a confirmation of receipt of written offer.
Yeah, Cher, we're having some audio issues. Could you repeat that again, please?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Now we can. So just start from the top again, please. Yeah.
There is a form by the New Jersey Association of Realtors called confirmation of receipt of written offer that the seller is supposed to sign and date when they received your written offer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have personally submitted this form, especially when things were really hot, when the property had multiple offers. And it's amazing to me the excuses I receive why the seller couldn't sign that form. Oh, they're traveling. Oh, okay. They're traveling, but they managed to sign an agreement of sale. Anyway, the point is there is a written form that's available that can be signed, or you can, just state, I want written confirmation from the seller. So the other thing I've gotten is when I say I want written confirmation from the seller, their listing agent will say, well, I'm sending you in an email that they saw it. Here's your written confirmation. I get that also. So it is very interesting. I would be so afraid to not present an offer. It comes back. People don't realize, they find out. I had a seller that said to me, they came to me for a house after they had sold another house with another agent. And they're like, I just feel like my buyer, I could have gotten more money. I just feel like I could have gotten a better offer. And because their listing agent had also brought that buyer, and they just weren't feeling right about it. I don't know why. I didn't get into it. I don't like to get into all that detail. But, again, if you as a seller should state, I want to sign these forms of all my written offers. I want it for my paperwork so that I could remember the offers I had or something, right? So even the seller can request it. So it shouldn't all be controlled by the listing agent. Remember, the listing agent is an agent for the seller. The seller dictates how they want the business to be conducted. The seller dictates what you can disclose and reveal other than material defects, to specific buyers. The seller could say, I don't want people to know I have multiple offers, or I do want them to know, or it needs whatever. The seller dictates this. The listing agent is an agent for the seller. But to get back to your point, yes, it's very uncomfortable when you are submitting offers and you're asking for confirmation in writing and you just don't get that form back. I actually contacted the board about it, and they said that's an ethics violation.
So listen, there probably are some unethical individuals that do not give your offer to the seller. That's the point that we're trying to make here. If you think you're putting an offer in, if you're not getting a signed piece of paper that seller of that home saw the offer, you're getting hosed by your representative. That's very clear. Do not go in naked. Make sure you have your own representative. And there's one more thing that kind of I think about an awful lot because it's happened many times. There are those who represent sellers, realtors from all kinds of towns. They don't like when people like Down Beach Buzz highlight a property because they're afraid they're not going to get two sides of the commission. They don't want Down Beach Buzz to promote that listing. They don't want it. So if you are on the market right now, homeowner, you're selling right now, ask your realtor right now, as soon as possible after this podcast. Hey, are you using Down Beach Buzz? Are you using them? They're the biggest media site for this Down Beach area. Are you using them to promote my listing, my $4 million home that's sitting there for months? Are you using Down Beach Buzz? Ask them those questions and make sure that your representative, if you're selling, you're getting every offer, because you should sign off that you received that offer. I'm telling you, this is a buyer's market, as Sherry is well aware. Now's the time to get aggressive and do not let people pull the wool over your eyes, because the days of fear of missing out and inflated, I'm going to buy anything I can get my hands on. It's a buyer's market now. Make sure you have representation. And I recommend Sherry, but just make sure you get a buyer's agent. They have a fiduciary interest to do nothing but good things for you. Don't use the seller's agent. Their primary duty is to focus on the seller. And they're not just, they're not really in your corners, I guess what I'm trying to say.
So to your comment about representing other listings on Down Beach Buzz, so that people understand, I have approached, you've been approached by some realtors to advertise listings. And we explained to them that you will promote their listing and acknowledge them as the listing agent, but then they would go to my website and potentially utilize me as a buyer's agent. And we get a lot of pushback because some people say, why would I do that? Like, I want both sides of the deal. Like, why would I do that? I'm like, because you would sell your $4 million listing. Like, isn't that what you want? You know, why do you have to feel the necessity to have both sides in this deal? Just sell your $4 million listing. I mean, I feel more comfortable when I have buyer's agents come to my listings, because I know that I could properly represent my seller. Now, a seller can tell you, I'm okay with dual agency. A buyer can tell you, I am okay with dual agency, but just understand that there's limitations with dual agency. So that's all. What are we looking at here? Oh, 105 South Essex.
Well, I just want to just remind people, this is the type of stuff we do, Sherry and I, on Down Beach Buzz, to promote listings. And it's so insane that when I've tried to do this for other listings, I get a phone call saying, take that down. So if you are a seller and you're trying to sell your property and you have an agent that's not reaching out to me, because in many cases we do this at no charge, but that agent that you have, they don't want to lose both sides of the deal. It's an ugly thing, but in some states it's either illegal or it's restricted. But I'm telling you, the dual agency, the double dipping of commissions, it's bad news. Don't do it. You're getting taken for a ride. I believe you could be getting taken for a ride. Would you ever say you're suing somebody, as Sherry always says this story. If you're suing somebody and they have an attorney, would you say, hey, listen, I know you're representing the other guy, the guy I hate, but can you represent me too? Of course, you would never do that. But for some reason in real estate, we do that. What is going on?
I think, well, here's the thing. I think, buyers believe, they believe it's more efficient. Well, that's not necessarily true, because the agent is the one that has to be responsible for all the paperwork. Just because it's in-house doesn't mean that agent is promoting it, but they believe they get a better price. But again, if you have a seller, let's say that listing agent advised them to list too high, wouldn't you want a buyer's agent who's going to run the comps for you, who knows the market, who's going to advise you really what the price should be, negotiate with you through all the home inspection? People forget there's many layers of negotiation that goes on. The first is with the price and the closing date. And then the next big one is the home inspection. And there's lots of stuff that comes up. And don't think that just because it's new construction that there aren't issues. My husband is a home inspector. He tells me all the stories with new construction, and actually I would like to do a podcast at some point about why inspection for new construction and tell you all the things that can happen. But anyway, You need someone in your corner. You need someone who's going to fight for you. You need someone that's experienced in negotiating and that's what you want. I find that when, let's say sometimes people like want to talk directly to the seller. There's a reason why buyers and sellers don't talk to each other, because they talk too much, right? An experienced agent, your buffer zone, knows what to say, when to say it, and to negotiate for you. That is what we are experienced to do for you. Anyway, all right, enough with that. Buyer's agency and and in this market, you have to have a buyer's agency agreement. So if you go to a listing agent now, since August 1st, they are required to explain to you that they represent the seller and that they how do you want to be represented? Do you want to be, let me see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so these are the duties of a buyer's agent. It's really hard to understand, but now you have to sign a buyer's agency agreement, even if you go to the seller, so that you understand how you'll be represented. But a buyer's agent will use diligence in its search to locate a property. So keep that in mind too. They're going to find you off-market deals. They're going to go to FSBOs, for sale by owners. Buyer's agent will turn every stone to find you your property. They will exercise care and comply with all the applicable laws and regulations. They use professional knowledge and skills to assist the buyer and negotiate for the purchase of the property. That is really key. You're going to a listing agent. They're not going to help you negotiate the best price for you. They're going to help you with every aspect of the transaction. They arrange home inspections, remind you about the utilities, just a lot of stuff. I'm not going to read through all this, but these are all the things. This is from the buyer's agency contract that you will sign with a buyer's agent. So, yeah, it's hard to read, but anyway, thank you for that. I mean, people really do need to understand. And if you don't understand, I have information I can email to you or explain to you over the phone. It really is important. It's a big purchase. Buying real estate is a huge decision. It's a lot of money. And you know what? A lot of people, their second homes cost more than their primary residence. So it's a really big investment.
Now's the time to get a buyer's agent, because the prices are being readjusted. There's a fair amount of properties coming onto the market. Some of them are reducing their prices. Some of them are reducing them a lot. But the last thing you want to do is go in blind and keep your fingers crossed that your offer might be a lowball offer. But did your lowball offer get to the actual seller? Unless you see a signed piece of paper that they saw the offer and they declined it, or they said, okay, maybe they'll counter offer, your representative is not doing you a favor. So is that about it for this topic? Because I want to just do a wrap up of
let's do a wrap up. Sure.
Right.
Well, that's enough. Enough with the class for today.
But that was good. That was really good. Let me see. Let me turn this off, bring this up. Okay. So these are the big stories that are popping up. The Baglivo thing is still going on. So I got pretty good at tracking down legal documents. It's not easy. The New Jersey court system, it's tough. But a lot of this stuff that they don't talk to you about, like if you went to the commissioner meetings in Margate or Ventnor or Brigantine and you asked, hey, what about this or that? I'm sorry, it's currently under litigation. We can't talk about that. I'm like, okay, I got to go online to find the documents. So all this stuff, a lot of this stuff is online. So shame on those solicitors and those mayors of all these short towns that say the same stuff, that I'm sorry, it's currently under litigation. We can't comment on it. Go to New Jersey courts and find stuff like this. So the Baglivo thing, it's insane. And I always gently tease Sherry about this. Your tax dollars are going towards this nonstop back and forth, multiple attorneys, Margate versus Baglivo. He's a troller. He's trolling. And so this story, you got to read it. I just posted it. Margate taxpayers keep funding the insane Baglivo lawsuit. Notice how I didn't say Roger McLarnon versus Baglivo. No. The taxpayers are getting hosed by Baglivo. But it's not just Baglivo. It's expensive litigation, weak code enforcement. The planning board failed big time, zero transparency. I'm telling you, Margate taxpayers, you're getting hosed because they're not pushing this fast. They're not pushing it through fast. Mr. Scott Abbott, we love the guy, but he dragged his feet for a long time. You're paying for it. The taxpayers of Margate are paying for all this nonsense. You're buying a gas station to be converted into a parking lot. Hey, it's up to you. It's up to you. So make sure you read this. The documents all here. Developer Steve Baglivo continues to frustrate Margate officials. He's draining taxpayer dollars too. See the recently filed docs below. The controversial developer allegedly overbuilt or miscounted the amount of units he could squeeze into his Margate Gardens mixed-use apartment complex. Was it 6? Was it 12? Bags, affectionately known as Bags, he's using the county court system to defend his real estate project that Margate City says is non-compliant with planning board approvals. So got some new documents right here. It's pretty, when you read it, you'll get nauseous. You might even throw up in your mouth a little bit. You're paying for this. You're paying for this. Margate endures expensive legal battles, weak code enforcement versus an aggressive, litigious builder. Margate Planning Board can't control Baglivo. Taxpayers, neighbors suffer. Got all the documents right here. And this thing about qualified immunity, does it apply for Margate's McLarnon? Because Baglivo is going after McLarnon personally, I think, arguing that, hey, Roger doesn't get qualified immunity. You got to read this. This is the stuff they've been hiding from you. You got to read it. You also have to figure out how to find this stuff online at newjerseycourts.com. I'm telling you, it's eye-opening and it's complete nonsense when these small towns say, sorry, it's under litigation. They're lying to you. Anyway, I get that off my chest.
Well, it was under litigation. They're not lying. They're just not giving you more detail.
Even though it's but it's public knowledge, but they won't tell you that. They won't even tell you what's going on with the gas station purchase. Is Exxon still involved? Is $300,000 of escrow enough? Whatever that's for. You got to hold these folks to the fire, their feet to the fire, everybody. And that is why I'm so happy to know that this little group called the DownbeachBUZZ, that's right, the Department of Government Efficiency is sniffing around the Down Beach area. And there's Mayor Collins, a nice photo of him. And I think tonight, Sherry, are you going to the meeting tonight?
I 100% am going because
can you do me a favor
tonight? What?
Can you do me a favor? Send my best to Scott and everybody. I know they're going to talk about your ordinance, but just remember this. I know that you don't want to screw that up, but they should be. Imagine you had to do all that work to make sure that poisons weren't being put into the air of Margate with construction site poisons. Imagine you had to go through all that. They should have done it anyway, kind of like the cereal companies feeding us poison with all these red dye number 5, all this poison that's been happening. And Lana Alexander, I love her. She has the cojones to get in front of everybody, right, Lana? See, Lana's on board. See that, Sherry?
Oh, hi, Lana.
All right, so let me just do a real quick one. So tonight at the March 20 Margate Commissioner meeting, Mayor Collins, along with Commissioners Kathy Horn and Maury Blumberg, are going to vote to authorize a lease with Yo Levin Inc. for their New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection non-compliant greenhouse beach party deck. Tonight, they're going to vote on giving this piece of beach to a private property for $25,000. I don't know what to say about that, but the DEP continues to send letters to Mr. Collins saying, you got to take that deck down. And I think Mr. Governor, Mr. Palestina and Don Guardian and Claire Swift, I hope they get on this too. So when you scroll down, you'll see here, going way back to 2023, the DEP is telling Mr. Goldstein and Lou DiVentura and the city of Margate, you can't have a beach deck on Green Acres land, on public property. I even have the most recent one from May 31, 2024, telling the mayor of Margate, you got to take that down. But now the city of Margate is doing a deal for 25 grand.
I'm totally confused by this because it's illegal, right? Like why is the city taking money for some, or is it considered illegal? Like they're obviously breaking laws. I don't know if they're called laws, the green restrictions. I mean, but you have a government agency that forbids this act, yet the city decides they're going to allow it and take money for it. It just doesn't sound right at all. Like I'm really confused by this whole thing.
Well, I have a solution. Because the city is allowing certain people to expand onto public land, onto the beaches outside of their domain. I believe anybody along the beach block could, on the beach, they can do. Why don't you just build out? Why don't you expand? Why don't you put a pickleball court in your front yard on the beach? Why not, sell snacks and soda and beer? Because you're not allowed to drink on the beach either. So listen, we love the greenhouse. We love the beach deck. But why do they get to do that, but nobody else can? I think tonight you should show up and ask Mr. Collins that and tell him, no, it's not under litigation. We have the documents right here. So, and just people are ticked off. Residents are frustrated over lack of enforcement and perceived preferential treatment given to Venturas. This is from 2024. Listen, you have to ask Mr. Collins about this. That's a big one. That's same thing happens over in Brigantine. They let certain people do stuff with dirty fill, contaminated fill. I'm telling you, that's why they don't have live Zoom meetings for these planning board meetings, because it's a lot of ugly stuff being discussed that they don't want you to know about.
Yeah, Lana, when are we having our live Zoom meetings? Do we have anything on that? We got to get Lana back on our
I know
podcast. She could do it from Florida. Anyway, all right. I will take it under advisement. I got to really pick my battles. So
yeah. So but when you think about that, though, I know that the ordinance to have clean construction sites is very important to you, but you shouldn't have been fighting about that for the past year and a half. That should have been natural. They're allowing construction workers to saw and put forever poison plastics into the groundwater, into the air, and you had to fight tooth and nail for that. That doesn't make sense.
Can I tell you? I first introduced it to Margate October 2023. And now they're finally changing it from a resolution, and I was happy that they did a resolution. That took 6 months, to an ordinance. An ordinance is law, which means that you can have fines posed on people in violation of the ordinance. It's a law. It can be enforced by police. It can be enforced by code enforcement. But anyway, it took that long. And I have a theory about why it took so long. Do you want to hear my theory?
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it.
Well, one of the commissioners happens to have construction going on right around his house. And apparently this construction, there's a lot of problems. There's noise, there's uncovered dumpsters, it's working after hours. So all of a sudden it becomes a priority. When it's in your face, then you become more concerned. Not everyone, some people actually care about it just because it's the right thing to do. But anyway, the fines for contractors are going up for noise violations, for not covering their dumpsters, for working after hours. And then also they're including this in part of it where they are not keeping the contaminants contained and properly disposed of, and instead letting them blow all over the place. And anyway, that's my theory. We'll see what happens. I am very excited that Margate's finally turning it into an ordinance, but we have municipalities all up the state. This is a statewide thing, and Claire Swift is writing a bill to the Office of Legislative Services is writing it up to bring it up to the state level. So this is an idea, it's really a no-brainer. Okay, so I'm surprised it took Margate this long, but I'm thrilled that they're finally doing it. Oh, please, what are we looking at here? The Atlantic Club and Marty Small.
Yeah, I want to know if you're happy that Marty Small and a construction official from Atlantic City were kicked off of the project, the Atlantic Club. They were told, do not bother Mr. Sabatini. I think his name is something like that. He's the one that bought this property. And for 2 years, they've been hosing him with his permits. I just thought I would share that this guy is bad news. And he's also in court for a lot of other ugly things. So just a couple of points. And how about our good friend, George Tibbett?
Yay, George. Yep. George is running for councilman, District 1, county councilman. So
that would be county commissioner. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, county commissioner, District 1.
So what is this picture? What does this picture look like? What does this picture mean?
The dunes. Is he headed with the dunes? I don't know. Please do share.
Yeah, you gotta get off of Wi-Fi next time. Bad audio. But yeah, he's standing in front of a very tall dune, and he says it's stupid that the state and Governor Christie piled up all this sand to destroy the number one reason why people buy a beach block, so they can see the ocean, so they can walk on the boardwalk. He got into this story, so I've been talking about it for a while. Pinky Kravitz was ticked off. Why do we have big mountains of sand? Of course, I believe it's because they were getting paid by the cubic yard pumped. And they're still fighting in front of the Atlantic Club. That Chelsea Beach Bar wants to expand and put a pool and a food truck. Mr. Blatstein getting a lot of grants, getting a lot of money, but also owes people for building his island water park. Bart's going through some tough times.
That sounds familiar.
and maybe the most important thing, you just getting close and comfy with our Congressman Jeff Van Drew, with Tilly looking over your shoulder in approval.
Yes, I like Jeff Van Drew. Very, very smart man. Does his homework, does his research. Yeah.
We have Ventnor. We have Tilly. That's about it. I don't want to get too deep into Jeff because. Just because. It's
52 minutes. Yeah, I think it's enough. I think we tied up people's ears. I think that's enough. Most people's attention span is 1/100th of that.
Yeah, well, we're the only ones talking about topics that should be talked about by everybody. But until people realize you have to force your commissioners and your mayors to live Zoom all the meetings, until you force them to do that, it's your fault for letting them get away with this stuff. It's unbelievable. You know what they forget about the most, Cher? The residents of Margate and Ventnor and Longport and Brigantine. They forget that they're the boss, and the elected officials and the people that are department heads in Margate or Brigantine or Ventnor, they're your employees. You're the boss as the taxpayer. You have to kind of remind yourself of that. And one more question. If you could ask John Scott Abbott, the esteemed solicitor of Margate tonight, if you could do me a favor. Say, Mr. Abbott, got a question. Do you represent and do the best for all Margatians or just the commissioners? In other words, do you represent and defend the 3 commissioners or all of Margate, like us peons here as residents? Because he really does need to stick up for Margate residents and not just the 3 commissioners. Bring that up if you find a chance doing that, okay?
I am not bringing that up. But thank you for sharing. That's a good question, though. That's a really good question. But I imagine he is paid to represent the taxpayers, right?
He's to protect the city of Margate. That includes the taxpayers, anything that has to do with Margate. But it seems like he only defends the 3 commissioners and the mayor.
Why do you say that?
Did you ever see him stick up for somebody in the audience? No, he
actually was a big advocate of my ordinance when I first introduced it, October 2023. That protects everybody.
Let me tell you, he got that done in little over 2 years. That's awesome.
No, he would have done it, but you know, we had some opposition from one of the commissioners. He supported it very strongly.
Who was against it? You're talking about the dirty construction sites?
Yeah. I'm not going to say. I don't want to do that.
All right, let me just say this.
Okay.
There's construction everywhere. And all that dust, all that poison, we know that's what it is. I can't even believe you spent all that time trying to have them stop putting poison and contamination into the environment. That's what they did.
Crazy, right? Speaking of which, I saw Ted Greenberg today. You know who Ted Greenberg is from
refresh my memory.
NBC News. And he did one of the early stories. What, are you going to find it? Anyway, he was on his way to Longport to do a story on all the teardowns in Longport, more construction. So, yeah. All right. Look at you.
All right. I've had enough. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Too. 55 minutes and counting.
Wow. That's, I'm not going to charge you extra for all the additional. I said all the things that you didn't want to say, I think, and I made you uncomfortable.
You like to stir the pot, and I like to.
No, I like to tell the truth. I like to tell the truth, but other people will say, "Are you a hater? Why do you hate this so much? Are you stirring the pot?" No, you just don't like listen, I support this organization, Down Beach Doge, Department of Government Efficiency. So you think this Doge thing, next time you go to one of those meetings like at Maynard's, just say, "Hey, listen, guys, I find this interesting. So this Doge thing is not just national and federal. It's coming down to your neighborhood, into your towns where it's really needed. Maybe it's not the same big numbers, but percentage-wise, is there waste in the way we spend taxpayer dollars? Hell yeah.
I just want to know who's on this Doge committee. I just want to know. Wait, I know who the head of it is. I know who it is, but who else is on this committee?
It's interesting how that's popping up, but it's actually happening all over New Jersey too. So there's different forms of it all up and down the state. So it's everywhere.
Good job.
Bring that up. Bring that up tonight if you can.
Okay. The new committee.
And tell Mayor Collins I said hello, and John Scott Abbott my best.
Okay, will do.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
You can just wave. Okay.